Hi everyone and welcome to Planting for Wildlife. It's been a really busy bank holiday weekend here. The landscapers are now all finished and they've created all of the beds and the birch grove. This weekend I've been trying to get as many plants as I possibly can into those beds, which has been a lot of fun and really exciting. The weather has been a mixture really of quite sunny, well actually beautifully sunny like it is today, and quite torrential rain overnight as well, which to be honest has helped because it's just softened up the ground nicely so I can get the plants into the bed. This week I was going to look at some of the different varieties of tree that have been delivered and planted into this garden, but I'm going to wait until a little bit later in the year to cover those until they've come into leaf. So for today, really a spring theme and looking at species tulips. One thing though before we get into species tulips that I wanted to share with you is just behind me, and when I first saw these my jaw literally hit the ground. I was really amazed to see them. So down the bottom of my garden here is kind of a bit of a no-go zone, or at least it was, but if you just follow this path down here you can see that there's actually two Fritillaria imperialis which look extremely happy here, and I was just amazed to see them down here because they have such a reputation for being difficult to grow, but these seem really happy and they're also a really great plant for pollinators. So what is a species tulip? A species tulip is one that occurs naturally in the wild rather than the modern hybridized tulips that have been specifically bred by horticulturalists to give that wide range of colours and shapes that we all mainly associate with tulips. Now, hybridized tulips do have a special place in my heart. I've grown quite a few different types in my own gardens, and I've also visited Keukenhof, which is like the mecca for tulips in the Netherlands. But this being a wildlife garden, I want to make sure that every single plant that goes into the garden, or at least as many as possible, are good for wildlife and good for pollinators. One problem with hybridized tulips is through the breeding process and all the anatomical changes that have been made, they've actually lost a lot of the nectar and therefore food for the bees. From my reading, they do provide some nectar, but probably only enough for that bee to feed on itself and not enough for it to take back to its hive. The extravagant flowers of hybrid tulips can also exhaust the energy from the bulb in the first year, meaning that in the following years the display is reduced. Some gardeners even recommend replanting the bulbs every year in order to guarantee that display. For me, that's just not a very sustainable approach to planting and gardening, and at least in the UK, a lot of our bulbs are grown in the Netherlands and then trucked, and well, those trucks go onto ferries in order to get them over to the UK. So that's a big carbon footprint just to plant some tulip bulbs. One good thing about species tulips as well compared to hybrid tulips is that they naturalise over time, a little bit like daffodils. So that's going to reduce the cost of planting and also the time spent replanting bulbs. In the wild, tulips grow high up in the mountains and valleys of Central Asia and Europe. So they like a rocky soil, but are okay with a harsh winter as long as they don't get too waterlogged. One top tip though, if you are storing any tulip bulbs before you plant them, definitely keep them out of the reach of mice. I had a bag of about 60 on my kitchen floor and they got absolutely devoured in about 2 nights. I know it's only tulip bulbs, but I was pretty upset. Species tulips are quite a lot smaller than hybrid tulips, growing from between 10 to 20 centimetres tall. I kind of think of them a bit like a large crocus. They're really beautiful in their own right though, and really give that early pop of colour in the garden, which is so important. They're a bit earlier than hybrid tulips too, normally flowering from mid-March into early April. It's the 1st of April today, and all of mine are in full bloom in the garden. I've got my top 5 species tulips for you, which I think could make a great impact to any garden, no matter what the style is. The first one is called Little Beauty, and it's the one that I've planted throughout the left bed of this garden. If you want a punch of colour early in the season, this one's definitely got you covered with its hot pink and lavender blue petals. I just love the colour contrast on this one. The centre of it is almost psychedelic, and I'm really hoping that it naturalises nicely throughout the next few years. If you want some two-tone vibrancy, Persian Pearl is a really nice option. This tulip has vibrant pink petals with a golden yellow centre. The outside of the petals is also a paler colour, meaning that when it buds up you get this like candy striped two-tone effect, which is really cool. For some softer tones, Lilac Wonder is a really nice option, especially when it's planted in mass. I really like with this one how the two-tone extends to the outside of the petals as well as the inside. For any of you who want a more neutral colour palette, there's a really nice option, and I'm going to have to read this one if you'll excuse me. It's called Caerulea oculata alba. It has pure white petals and then a little splash of colour with a vibrant blue centre. Going out with a bang, Red Hunter has bright red flowers that sit above a grey-green foliage. It's meant to be one of the best red tulips to grow, and it's received the Royal Horticultural Society Award of Garden Merit. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe. And if species tulips haven't been on your radar too much until now, definitely have a look out for them when you're visiting gardens. A lot of gardens, at least in the UK, have a lot of different species tulips, which are always really nice to see. Always a great option for your own garden as well, to give that pollinator friendly hit of colour early in the year. Until next time, enjoy the wildlife in your garden.